Hi, I'm Marty Strong, and this is the next episode of Instincts. And with me today, I have four-time gold medalist Olympian Vincent Hancock. Vincent,
thanks for having me.
Great to have you.
Yes,
this
sir.
is going to be really interesting. So I don't think I've ever met anybody that's won a gold medal of any kind, anywhere.
First.
Unless you count like my kids or something in swimming or something like that. Wow, that's incredible. I know we had a little bit of time to talk ahead of time, but for those that don't know much about you, you're one of only 7 people that have ever got 4 gold medals in the same discipline in the Olympics. You've been in 4 Olympics.
Been in 5.
5 Olympics.
Yeah, we just don't talk about Rio.
Okay, we won't. No. Scratch Rio. And you're preparing to try for the Olympic team in 2028.
Yes.
Okay, and then will you be too old after? I'm just kidding. So you're also a world champion. I think was it the 7th time in a row? Last time, one of the times we talked at the end of last year, you just come back from Europe. Was that the World Championships?
Yeah, from the World Championships in Greece last year.
Yeah.
That was my 5th individual, and I don't know how many in total between team events and everything like that added up together.
Okay. Well, we're going to try to kind of get to the bottom of who you are and what kind of shaped you as you were growing up and everything. When we start to get into your shooting, it may get boring because it seems like you've never lost. But we will try. We'll try to find some element of struggle and strife and overcoming some kind of resistance. If we don't find that, then you and I can just start talking and telling travel stories or something. That a deal?
Deal. There'll be more to it than you think.
Cool. I hope so. So, Instincts is all about trying to determine what affected the lives of people that, at the point you hear about them, are successful on the way to their success. There's people that read biographies. I'm a big fan of biographies. If you look at somebody like Ulysses S. Grant or Harry Truman, they eventually were presidents, or in the case of Grant, the general that won the Civil War. But if you start looking at their entire backstory, they have alcoholics, failed businesses, all kinds of crazy stuff. And their success was not linear, and they were knocked down and then lifted up and knocked down, and in some cases lifted themselves up and continued moving forward until they ended up being a success. And I think the lessons that are really valuable are all those lessons from zero to superstar. It's not so much focusing on the celebrity end state. So we're going to start with your childhood. Were you shooting things when you were in the cradle? Were you already shooting at things?
I was watching my dad shoot things.
Okay.
My mom has pictures of me in a stroller back behind the firing line with my dad competing down at Silver Dollar Trap Range near Sarasota. So it's been a family affair since I can remember.
And he didn't make you go out and grab all the clean clays and bring them back or anything like that?
Thankfully, no, not that time.
So what is your earliest memory? And I think from talking to you, your father has a big impact on your life, but kind of your earliest memory of understanding who you were and starting to think about what you thought you should become or wanted to become, and what was that like, or what do you remember of that?
I mean, growing up, I was big into sports. The only thing I wanted to do was play sports. And so baseball, basketball, football, whatever my parents would let me play, I was playing. I mean, I had a golf club in my hand since I was 3 years old because of my grandpa. Funny enough, my mom was actually the one that taught me how to pitch and catch baseball. And so it was fun to have that experience because my dad traveled a lot when I was little.
Okay.
And so I was born in Florida. We only lived here for a few years. Don't really have much memory of that, but I do remember our move up to Georgia. My dad's company had failed. They had filed for bankruptcy, and he had to move up to Georgia to be able to work with a friend's company in construction and just to be able to keep the family going. So there was a lot of hard time there at the beginning. I was 3. And so I remember moving up, remember the first house, but I also remember in that first house when I was 3 or 4 years old, I had a BB gun. Why I had a BB gun at 4 years old, I don't know. Probably stole it from my brother or something like that. And went out and shot a bunch of birds and brought the birds back to my mom and said, "Hey, look at these." And it was like a cardinal, a bluebird, like all these birds you're not supposed to shoot. I was just like, "Hey, it's pretty colors." Had no idea. I got in a lot of trouble. I got in so much trouble. But shooting and hunting was in my family. And I just wanted to be like they were. So as kind of all those things started to evolve, me being as much of an athlete as I could be, me getting into shooting, being around shooting my whole life, it just kind of started escalating from there on. What is my purpose?
Do you remember the attraction more about the competitive issue, or more about being able to do something that was like a sign of excellence, like the precision aspect of it?
For me, it was just about having fun and competing. At the very beginning, it was trying to be better than somebody else. I was very motivated by being better than anybody at anything. And 100%, looking back on it, I was probably the child that you wanted to just kick, because if I lost something, I was not a happy loser. I was definitely a sore loser, and I was going to ask you to do it again. And I was going to keep asking you to do it again until I found a way to beat you.
What did you suck at? He asked the Olympian.
At the time, growing up, I really didn't have that many options to choose from. So I always like to say I was one of the best athletes on all the teams that I played, but that's not hard to do when you grow up in a really small town full of a town with not many good athletes.
Gotcha.
So I was the best of what was there, but I still always wanted to be better, because I would see, and by the time I was 5, the Atlanta Braves were hot on the trail of winning World Series in the early mid-90s, and I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That was my ultimate goal until I was probably 12 and realized, okay, I'm probably not going to be big enough, fast enough, run fast enough, throw hard enough, do all the things. But thankfully I had already started shooting at that point and kind of found, hey, this is an Olympic sport. Maybe this is something I can do.
So were you encouraged in general by your parents, or was there any other influence, siblings or other family members or anybody outside the family to keep trying to keep, or were you kind of just solely and singularly focused and motivated all by yourself?
I would say that I was singularly motivated. Yes, my parents allowed me the opportunity to do these things. I mean, and it wasn't for I never got to play select baseball in Atlanta. I was always borrowing people's bats because we never had enough money. I mean, I've only ever owned 2 baseball gloves from the time I was 4 years old to when I quit playing in high school, because that's all we could really do. Mm-hmm. And by the time my dad was actually making enough money, I was spending it all on shooting. So, buying pallets of shot at a time, buying pallets of powder at a time, and going and finding other people's spent holes on the ground so I could reload them. And my dad and I reloaded for years and hundreds of thousands of rounds, just simply because it was way cheaper to do that than it was to buy anything. They encouraged me, sometimes in a productive way, sometimes in a not productive way. We can get into my relationship with my father here in a little bit, but it's like most successful athletes, and even businessmen and things like that, there's always going to be some point of, at least in my experience so far, typically there's always a little bit of strife, and it's typically with the father.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I write about the issues with my dad in my 3 business books because it actually diverted me from looking for somebody to praise me and looking for somebody to kind of help me to heck with it. I'm just going to do what I want to do, try it myself, because I can't expect anything from it, And in my books, I'm trying to explain kind of my backstory so people get why I do the things I do, the way I do it, the way I'm laying out in each of the different stories in the business books. They're not fiction, but there's a lot of life stories in there, why I did what I did, and therefore why am I saying this is a good thing for you to try. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about it a little bit. You don't have to get super deep. So I don't want you to cry or anything.
No. My dad and my mom were both very loving, very supportive parents. But at the same time, my dad was a person that definitely pushed me in good ways and bad ways. There's lots of things that I learned from my parents growing up, and I made the conscious effort of reminding myself, I want to do something like this. I want to make sure that I always give my kids hugs, that I always tell them that I love them. They did a great job of that. But I've also learned a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And the comments from my dad of a little bit backstory on this before we really dive into it is, yes, he was a shooting athlete. He shot the American style of trap. We had no idea that the Olympics had shooting in it whatsoever. So when I was 11, I'd already been shooting for about a year. We found out that shooting was an Olympic sport.
Was that 68 for men, I think?
Oh gosh, 64 was the first skeet. But shooting in general has been in since 1896. So it was one of the first 4 Olympic sports that were out there and available. And so, but with all of that, we didn't know any about it. And we didn't know about it, we didn't know anything about it. So we just kind of started and, hey, let's go to Atlanta where they held the 96 Olympics. Let's go try this. And showed up, tried it, did really well the first day. It was a Saturday. Came back the next day and shot horrible. And it was the drive home that night, my second day ever of shooting the Olympic discipline. And I told my parents, this is what I want to do. I want to go to the Olympics and I want to win a gold medal. And
you were how old?
I was 11 at that point in time. I was still battling with my baseball dreams and aspirations, but that really was the point of inflection for me to say, this is my stepping off point. This is where I'm really going to pursue.
So you completely skipped the whole G.I. Joe phase.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yep. And so, but with all of that, it was a battle and a struggle with my dad because he had no idea how to coach me.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing. So we just learned everything together. And many, many times we fell into arguments because I felt like we should do something a different way. I mean, it was me that was doing it. So I'm the one that was pointing the gun. I could feel everything. And he's like, no, you need to do it like this. I'm like, that's not going to work. Most of the time it worked what he wanted me to do. But oftentimes it was I'd try it and then I'd have to make some small modifications to it and different things like this.
Was there a difference between mechanical and flow?
What I do is very mechanical. It's all mechanical based. Once you get your mechanics down, then it's a mental aspect of, okay, now how many times can you do this perfect in a row? Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that I'm still battling today. I mean, I'm still not perfect. And while I've shot many perfect scores, the reality is that I still miss. And I'll never be perfect, but I'm always trying to be.
Is it the same? Do you think it's the same kind of brain game as high-end golf?
Golf and shooting are exactly the same. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why I love golf so much and hate golf so much, is that we go through the same process. So it's easy for me to transition from the shooting sports and having this routine, this pre-shot routine, during shot routine, being able to handle these intrusive thoughts and being able to push them out. And once you have a process that's set up, like we do on the shooting side of things, going and playing golf, if you're swinging the club enough, then you're going to get good pretty darn fast. And I was playing during COVID. I've played golf my entire life, but nothing ever serious. But during COVID, I had nothing else to do, and we were members at a country club in Fort Worth. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go hit balls twice a week, and I'm going to play 2 rounds a week. And I got to a 4 handicap in a month and a half. So it's not something that I struggled with. It's something that I really enjoyed. But it's still, it's just like shooting for me. And so I was able to relate it, but I also got frustrated really quickly with golf because it's just like shooting.
Right.
And I expect perfection of myself in shooting, so therefore that I didn't really have this body change because it's a mental mindset that when I'm out hitting a ball and going through this process, well, I've at that point in time I'd already won 2 Olympic medals and 3 world championships. So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I should be able to be, a plus handicap here anytime. A month and a half might be a little bit ambitious, but still, I know I wanted to get better and better, and I hold myself to such a high expectation that whenever I set my mind to something, I'm going to find a way to accomplish it.
I'm the same way with golf until the 3rd hole. And then I lower my expectations, and I'm happy again. You mentioned mindset. So I'm working on my 4th book. It's called Intentional Performance, and it's because as a former SEAL, people always want to know, what's your discipline system? How do you get your mindset? They want to know the mechanics of it, or the formula, or the process. And I've never really had a way to answer it, right? And because you are what you are, you've internalized it so much, to step outside of yourself and say, well, when did I first learn to care about the little things? When did I first care When was I open to expert mentoring? When was I, all those things. And it was tough. The business books were easy. I mean, I remember that stuff, and it wasn't so hard. But trying to figure out what I became over time was another reason why I wanted to start this podcast. Not everybody's got the same story, same journey. But if you're ever going to get to the kind of the apex of whatever your endeavor is, you've established some kind of personal, intentional performance system, if you want to call it mindset, you call it discipline. When did you really start to put those kinds of things in alignment? Was it when you were 11, or was it later?
No, it was really later. I mean, I flew by the seat of my pants just purely off of talent and working extraordinarily hard for the first Olympics.
Book, by the way, by the seat of my pants. So.
Yeah, that's really what it was. I mean, I willed myself to win that first gold. Looking back at the way that I shot now and the processes that I have, I would never go back to being that athlete, ever. I changed, after 2009 actually, I changed the way that I was shooting, and because I saw that, okay, I can get a little bit better. I need to find a way to be better. And so I changed. I won the Olympics in 2012, and I needed to change again. So I changed my style again.
Tiger Woods did it, didn't he? Did he
a few different times.
To a certain point where, the other thing, do you feel like people are emulating and cloning some of your mechanics?
100%, yes.
Because I think that's what was happening with him. This other generation of people started coming out. They were lifting weights and started to look, and they were shaped like Tiger Woods. They weren't just golfer type bodies. They looked like athletes all of a sudden. Yep. All these college kids, all these high school kids started training and trying to emulate exactly what he was doing. And now he's competing against them. Mm-hmm. So he had to change his game.
Absolutely. And if you can find a way to get better, you have to. And so as I started transitioning again after that, winning the second medal, I was like, okay, I know I can get better. And I actually did. I improved myself. And going into 2016 in the Rio Olympics, I was number one in the world. I was expected to win again. And I let those expectations get to me. Only when I got to the games. And there was other things, like my wife was supposed to be with a group of people, and they didn't end up taking care of her, and so I ended up having to try to get her with other people to make sure she could be safe to get from downtown Rio to the shooting range and back again.
Right.
And one of the trips right before the competition started, they took her through one of the favelas, and there was a lot of danger at that point in time because people were getting robbed, going into the favela saying, "Give me all your money, or I'm going to drop you off and kick you out of the car." So lots of issues. Her tickets didn't show up when they were supposed to show up, so she's waiting outside the gate on the day of. And then it was raining on mine. It just lots of things that would go against me where normally wouldn't bother me. I just look past it and say, okay, just another obstacle, that's fine, right, and fight it. But it got the best of me. And so I took about a year after that to say, what happened, why did it happen, and how do I fix it? And that's really where it dawned on me. And I didn't even know those 3 steps back then. I was just trying to figure out, okay, what went wrong? Why did I go from first to last in my mind? Mm-hmm. And because anything other than gold was a failure for me at that point. And so I started just self-reflecting, finding out, okay, what did I do? I didn't necessarily do anything wrong mechanically. It was just all up here. I let things get into my head, and that affected my heart and my
emotional
output.
distraction is a lot more powerful than just general distractions.
I found that out the hard way. So then I started doing more coaching. And as I started trying to find ways for myself to improve, and then relating those to my athletes and teaching them how to improve themselves, that's when I really came to understand this 3-step method of, and come to find out pilots use the same thing, where it's a what happened, what went wrong, or even what went right, but mostly what went wrong, how do you fix it, or why did it happen, sorry, and then how do you fix it? So those 3 steps have helped me climb that ladder back to being successful again and winning the next Olympics in Paris or in Tokyo, and then going back and winning another Olympics in Paris. So it was a very culminating point for me for that failure in 2016, because it turned my life around from a perspective of no one is going to give you anything. Everyone is it's going to take it away from you if you let it happen. So you have to continue to fight for it and give it everything that you have, because people are working to be better than you every single day. And if you're not outworking them, then you're falling behind. And even though I'm teaching athletes, and I'm wanting them to get better, and yes, I was one of the first ones that really used the gym to improve my performances. is really the first one to set down a more robotic routine to where I'm doing the exact same thing every single time. And so now you're starting to see cameras roll every time I shoot, especially with the Asian countries. They're constantly trying to watch so they can emulate. And for me, emulation is the greatest thing I can ask for, because that means I must be doing something right. People want to do what I'm doing. But that it's still you're never going to understand it fully just by trying to emulate. It's going to get you close.
Right.
But you really have to understand those fine details. And over the last probably 6, maybe 7 years, that's when I really started focusing on the fine details.
You know, another kind of back to people asking me questions. Everybody assumes that SEALs, special ops guys, whatever, are arrogant because they have to be, because the movies and the TV shows and the books and everything hold them out as like Marvel comic book caricatures, right? And I was asked a question one time in an interview, and I said, no, I don't think so. You'd be surprised. Almost everybody I know, including me, we wake up every morning paranoid. We'll explain paranoid. So in my newest book I'm working on, I've got a whole chapter on it. I said, well, it's not like a negative aspect of paranoid. This is how, in business, same thing. I wake up and I see in my mind's eye a competitor who got up 2 hours earlier, who has a better plan, has been working on a better process, a better product, a better service. And that, at that point, if you just leave it like that, then that's just a risk and a threat and all that. But then you have to take that and say, okay, now what am I going to do about it? Right? And if you think that way every day, you're motivated right out of the bed. You're motivated to try to figure out a way to counter this. You know, it's not really imaginary. It's hypothetical, but it's educated hypothetical projection of what could be going on out there. Because if you don't do that, the opposite is arrogance. You wake up every morning and, you know, I'm the bomb diggity. Nobody can come close to me. And then that influences what you do with the rest of your day. So I think healthy paranoia is really good. And it's interesting that you said that, because you said that plus the other thing that is a parallel. I was an instrument-rated pilot. So the OODA loop, you know, and when you're doing instrument-rated piloting and you have an examiner, you know, you have to get recertified all the time, they'll put you on pure analog. They'll take off, they'll shut off everything. And now you have to fly by a magnetic compass, P-tobe 2, which is the airflow coming in as tube. It's mechanical, telling you how fast you're going. And you've got a little level telling you whether you're like this or like this. And what they do is they try to teach you that you're getting all kinds of weird systems inputs, which is the distraction element in an airplane, and you start chasing the solution without thinking about what's going on. And going back to that, what you said, it was like your 3 steps. Because you go back to the 3 steps, what you end up doing is you end up coming to a conclusion. But in a plane, the mantra is, the first thing you do is you fly the plane. Then you go through all these 3 steps, 4 steps, the OODA loop process, whatever. Because if you don't fly the plane, you'll be sitting there trying to problem solve all the way into the ground. And I've seen other people use work the problem, the same kind of thing. It just galvanizes people to stop kind of miserating about all the possibles and everything. Now, sit down, you got to put it on paper, get on a whiteboard, talk to somebody else and pound it out. This is what I think the issues are. This is what I think the concerns or threats are, the risks, shortfalls, whatever. And I need to come up with some way of addressing each and every one of these things in a positive, productive manner. And then if it becomes something I have to train to, well, then that's going to influence my new training plan to change who I am, change how I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yep. And it's very relevant for us as athletes. And we set training plans. I mean, I program for my athletes on a daily basis. So I know exactly what they're training for, but they'll see in their notes, hey, I want you working on these 3 steps. It's usually we work on 3 steps at a time. If I were to break down everything for you, it's going to be hundreds of little things to make a perfect move and a perfect shot. But you can't think about all of those things. It's too much. So we typically as men can only think about one thing at a time anyway. Women, they're smarter than us. They can process more things, but they were built that way. They were built to be able to handle children running around, hear things going on, so they multitask much better than men do, typically. There are men that can do multitasking, but for the most part, one step at a time. So what do? We focus on, and even with my female athletes, we're still going to focus on just a few things, because for them, it keeps all the other things from coming into play. And for men, they just tend to not think about it and just go and do. So no, I want you focused on these 3 things. Whatever that may be for that day that you need to work on, then I need you thinking about those three things every single time you step on a station and before you call for the target. And then you have to execute. And so there's a piece of this puzzle that has to be put together every single day. Otherwise, you wake up in the day and you think that your puzzle's complete, then you've already been beaten. It has to be, right. Yes, that's your goal. And everybody has to have a daily goal. And they have to have a dream at the end of the tunnel as well. But your goal is only accomplished by you working to put together those pieces.
Mine's to play well at least 4 holes.
Thought it was 3. Wait a minute.
No, 3's where I stop.
Okay.
3's where it all falls apart. On the 3rd hole is usually where it falls apart. So tell me a little bit about, you entered the Army, mm-hmm. and it sounded like you did the same thing I did. I entered the Navy way before I actually joined the Navy. I did an early entry type program, whatever. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was recruited by the Army Marksmanship Unit to join their shooting program. They started talking with me when I was 15, when I won my first Olympic selection. I didn't make it to the Olympic team, but I won the final Olympic selection before Athens in 2004. And then in 2005, a year later, I won my first World Championship along with 2 other World Cups and then 2 silvers in World Cups. And I think I ended up winning 7 medals out of 7 international competitions that year. Nobody's got more than 4 other than that. And so after that year, they were like, hey, we really want you to consider this. And I had colleges.
How'd you like to be a private?
Yeah, right. An E-nothing, basically. But the way that I was looking at it from a perspective of, I can either go to college and they'll let me shoot some, but they're not going to let me do what I need to do. Right. To be a true Olympic athlete.
Because you're a road warrior.
And yeah. Exactly. You have too much, and I shoot way too much. They're not going to give me that much ammo or that many targets. Or I can continue to burden my parents with the price tag that I know what they were spending. And for them at that point in time, it was a lot of money. Or I can take this third option, which is join the Army, shoot for their team, get paid to shoot, and have unlimited ammo and targets while I'm there. And
great uniforms. I mean, they're really great uniforms.
I don't know. At the time, we were going into the ACU at the very beginning, and it wasn't the best.
I was kidding.
Yeah, thank you.
We all know the Marine Corps only has really good uniforms.
Well, so I made the choice. For me, it was an easy decision. I didn't want to burden my parents. And college, I had planned to go to UGA and attend school there. And kind of my thought process was I'd always wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go to medical school. And so I'd already had that pathway through biology at UGA, Emory for med school. And then shooting took me a different path. So I decided, yep, this is what I'm going to do. I joined at 17, or 17, sorry. I had just turned 17 and shipped out for basic training June 1st of 2006. Went through basic training through that summer. I missed my first week of my senior year of high school and then went back to school. Did everything I needed to do there, and as soon as I graduated, I went out. Instead of going to AIT, because I had to go and win the Pan American Games, because in my mind, I had to win the Pan American Games, and so that way it would set me up for success for the Olympic Games in 2008, the year later. So graduate 07, basically June 1st of 07, I go to the marksmanship unit. I stay at one of the guys that's there had a barracks room that he wasn't living in. He was living off post. So I stayed there, very frowned upon, but they never found out about it, so it was okay. And so I shot through the summer, won the Pan Am Games, won the first Olympic selection, and then shipped out to AIT. And the whole intention was I was going to be 11 Bravo. I wanted to be an infantryman. And then they told me I was going to have to start over at week 3 of basic training. So I said, hell no, not doing that again. I'll go through what's the shortest, fastest thing you have that you can get me through to get me back to the unit. And they were like, oh, well, let's see,
animal husbandry.
Truck driving school was 7 weeks long. So I was like, it'll have me back home before Christmas. Perfect. I went and I learned how to drive trucks for 7 weeks. Never touched another truck while I was in the Army. My official MOS while I was at the Army Marksmanship Unit is 00 Delta, which is shooter instructor. And So that's what I did the rest of the time.
That's a cool MOS. Just sounds cool.
Right?
Double O Delta. Yeah. Shaken, not stirred. Wow, that's cool. I went to radar and air traffic control school, and they never did that ever again. That was, they call it Navy enlisted classification, NEC, same as the MOS.
Okay.
Years later, we were going to do an op, and they had boats out looking for us. We were parachuting in about 25 miles out at sea, and they were going to come in. And I knew the kind of boats they were using against us, and I was thinking, okay, if we come in, those boats, their radar will be tuned in, and they're going to see us, and they're going to track us right to the beach, and they'll have somebody waiting for us. And that's what they wanted us to get some training value out of it, right? And so I looked up some stuff about that specific radar, and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I told everybody, I briefed, the plan for a grade, that we were going to do exactly that. We're going right into the beach landing. We're going to go in and hit the target and everything. Instead, we parachute in, we get on our rubber boats, we start them up, middle of the night, and we went completely right, 90 degrees for about 4 or 5 nautical miles. Then we punched into the coast, and we stayed about 50 yards off the coast because I knew the waves and the sea wash gets distorted in radar. And so we were in this white mess, or this green mess when you're looking at the screen, that they couldn't see. And we went all the way down, and then we landed about 300 yards to the right of where we said we would be. And they're out there like, we can't see them. They should be here by now. And they're getting worried about the safety aspect of it. And we're already like sneaking towards the target. Boy, did I get chewed out for that one. But that's the only time I used anything from that school. 17 weeks of that school. Never used anything like it before or after that.
Yeah, well, hey, it has its use, right?
My guys thought I was a genius. I was an officer by that time. They thought, wow, he knows a little bit about everything. Yeah, well, that happens if you've been around long enough. So you were you're an athlete, but you've started to become an entrepreneur. I'm saying started. I mean, you've been doing it for a while. You've got a shooting school.
I have a shooting range.
But you wanted to kind of expand that, right?
Yes. So we've got the one in North Lake, which is just north of Fort Worth in Texas. We've got, between 300 and 400 kids that shoot there every week on high school teams. And we've just continued to grow it.
You don't do any training there? It's just the range facilities?
I coach there as well, but
Okay.
I don't really necessarily have that as part of the range. So what I do from a coaching perspective is done through another business that I have.
Gotcha.
So we have those. I have those two. I'm the current head coach for the Qatar Olympic team. So I work with the Qatari athletes on a daily basis, whether I'm there or they're with me, or we meet in Italy, or through daily programming on an app that I have on the phone. I'm constantly working with athletes from around the world.
Who's their coach when the Olympics happen?
Well, that's going to be a good question. We're going to have I'll still be coaching them, but what I've always told them is, if I'm doing my job as a coach, then by the time you get to the Olympics, you're not going to need me anymore, because I'm going to teach you everything that I know. And if I'm doing my job, I will do it so well that I coach myself out of a job, and I'm okay with that, because if that's the point that they get to, that means that they're going to be successful. And I ultimately want them to have success, but I also remind them that when you get to the Olympics and you want to win a gold medal, you still have to beat me first. So I'm teaching you everything I know,
right?
But you still got to beat me, and I'm not going to make it easy. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they can get a silver, and then I bring home gold to the U.S.
But why the entrepreneurial bug? I mean, I have a lot of friends, and I've been an entrepreneur for years and years and years. I write and speak about all that, the drive, the risks, the ups and downs, and all that. What did you always think that way? That someday you want to own a company, or whatever, or did you just kind of transition in your mind that I need to do something? Because athletes, professional athletes, people, they start saying, well, someday I'm not going to be able to do what I'm doing now at the speed, or I'm not going to be able to fight these guys under the hoop, or whatever it is. So I'm going to buy a restaurant or a chain of restaurants, or I'm going to do something else. And they kind of have a rational economic transition planned well in advance. Others just get bored with doing the same thing over and over again, decide they want to try our hand at something. So why you? I mean, why are you doing these things?
I think it's more a natural transition for me, of knowing that I can't keep doing this for forever. And I want to stay in the industry. So yes, I have my coaching school, if you will, or coaching company. I have my shooting range. I own a suppressor company now that we're focused on silencers that are made.
Not voting suppressor. This is
hunting suppressors is really what we're going on. We're focusing on the hunting industry, not the tactical side of things. And then I'm working on finalizing contract to purchase another range here in Georgia. So it's slowly expanding my influence throughout the industry, just simply because I want to have my fingers in places that can make a difference. With Northlake, we have so many kids that are active and engaged in the shooting sports that's really the next step for me from a legacy perspective, but it's also a next step for me financially too. And I still have plenty of years left as a shooting athlete if I wanted to. The average age of the shooting sport athlete it's getting younger now, but when I first got into it, it was between 40 and 42 years old.
Wow.
So that's another 2 Olympics for me. And so with all of that in mind, yes, I have this longevity in sport that I can keep going, but I feel like I can have much more of an impact both on the Second Amendment drives here in the United States, the growth of the shooting sports in the U.S., but also around the world. That's really what's pushing me now, because I've won everything that I can win, at least 4 times. But I still like to win. I hate losing. That's the one big key that we can circle back on. I love to win, but I hate losing. And so that's a big motivating factor. But on this business side of things, my business degree is in entrepreneurship. Okay. I've always had lots of ideas of things and no way to really put them into action. Well, now as I've gotten older, as we've done a lot of saving, we've done a lot of just accumulation of the little bits of money that we get as an Olympic athlete, right, and especially as a shooting athlete, to put those into strategic places that are not only going to help us financially, but also going to, again, spread my influence and the impact that I can have. Because wherever I'm going to be, you're going to see youth athletes. You're going to see us giving back to the youth shooting sports, because I want the next generation to have the opportunity that I did. But I want them to have it more, and I want them to have it better.
So what kind of challenges, as an entrepreneur, give me a couple examples of some challenges you ran into. It could be now, it could be the very beginning, it could be at any particular time. I mean, I know just from talking to business people, there's kind of a classic set of challenges that everybody seems to be struggling with all the time. But in your case, because you're not the typical person that's in a business as an employee that maybe works their way up to manager, shifts 2 or 3 companies around, stays in kind of the same industry, goes up, then maybe gets downsized, then decides, I can do what I did for them, for myself, creates a company, goes through that. That's kind of the standard cycle for subject matter expert business startups. In your case, you're going this way, and that whole world's over here. Even though the topic's the same, running a business to do that is running a business.
Yeah.
So what kind of challenges did you run into, or what was the learning curve like?
Understanding business agreements. Partnerships are hard. And understanding the first one that I set up, it's been difficult because we didn't get it set up properly at the very beginning. And taking that understanding and then that management, I was helping my partner run the shooting range, Northlake Shooting Sports. And then I just got to a point where I couldn't be there all day, every day. He had retired. He likes being there all day, every day, 7 days a week. And I have a family, and I have another job, really 2 more jobs between coaching and shooting as an athlete. I can't be there working, 10 to 12 hour days. And it was getting to that point where, I was spending 70 plus hours there a week, and it was taking me too much away from my family.
Yeah, time suck.
So it was. And so when I stepped back from that, it was, okay, I learned a good lesson. The hiring side of things was new for me too, because I had been in the Army or I had been independent as an athlete. So I never had to deal with any of these things. So I learned some good things from my partner, and I learned some bad things from him as well. But that helped me get into this next suppressor company, which we ended up forming the end of last year. But there's 4 owners. We have a very sound business agreement. We have our places, we have our structure. But again, hiring is hard. And we hired in several people that were supposed to be really good advisors, high-level advisors for us, and they're already not with the company. They haven't been there for months now. So and they're having to pick up the slack, and I'm having to pick up slack, and they're having to do jobs they weren't supposed to have to do, and I'm doing a job I wasn't supposed to have to do. But that's how things work in a startup, right? And
well, not just a startup. Anytime you're impacted by the demand to execute that exceeds your ability to execute. This could be a billion-dollar corporation. You could have the same problem going on. If the demand is, I want 1 million of these things, and you can only make 500,000 of these things, and you don't have enough money to tool up and create the gap.
yeah,
Everybody's panicking, everybody's freaking out, everybody's trying to figure out how we're going to do this, or is it even possible? And then they start shredding and trying to strip dollars from other parts of these larger corporations to try to create the pool of resources, or they sell equity, they do all these other kinds of things, all because the external demand signal, which is saying you're successful.
mm-hmm.
You don't have a labor problem or an advisor problem or a partnership agreement problem if nobody's showing up.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it. Think about that first example. You set the range up, and the two of you going, birds are flying by,
Yeah.
all right? No stress, there's no crunch. So usually it's because the demand is exceeding your ability to execute. And the other part of that is the quality. So you're obviously, a quality guy. So it's about, we're not just going to have people come out here and blow a bunch of rounds off, hand them a certificate and go, next. It's not going to be a mill. It's not going to be that kind of a situation, right?
Yeah.
You might get more volume through, you might make more money because you've attached your name to it, right? You're a marquee, world-class marquee shooter. You want to produce the best that you can at the level of an age and the level of commitment, a world-class level of shooting experience, and if you're coaching experience. That makes the demand signal even higher, because the demand signal can either be a quantity or it can be a quality.
Mm-hmm.
Because how long it takes for you to do something, or if you're focused on quality, it might be 10 times if all you're worrying about is the quantity part. You can hire anybody to walk in and be a range safety officer, right, and just cycle kids through the range.
Yep.
Yeah, but I guess the good thing is that's what everybody goes through, everybody lives through. That learning curve seems to be normal. The hard part for entrepreneurs is they get to a point where they think this is just too much of a pain in the ass to keep doing. Hmm. And if you don't have an altruistic reason for doing it, like you're saying, your legacy, mm-hmm. All right, so you want to leave a legacy and you want to imprint this particular quality of coaching and experience and all that on American youth and maybe by extension international youth. Well, that's a reason to hang in there. That's a reason. It's not about how much money can I make, whatever. And most entrepreneurs don't have that extra, altruistic aspect to their goal. They either want to survive, pay the bills, and then get to a point where I'm burned out, I don't see my family anymore, whatever. Mm-hmm. What's the special reason I'm doing this? And if there's no special reason, they just fold it up. Mm-hmm. I don't get the impression you're going to do that.
I'm not one to give up easily. I'm pretty hard-headed.
Yeah. You hate to lose. You must also hate to quit.
Usually I have to be drug off kicking and screaming. But even taking a step back from the range and from that business was hard to do because I want to see it succeed. And it was going to succeed regardless because we're in a great location. It doesn't really get much better than our location. And we had a good basis already built up. So it was going to continue to improve. But the reality is that, like you had talked about before, there's quantity and quality, but there's also consistency. Those are 3 key pillars that I preach to the athletes in their understanding of training. But I've also found that it is exactly the same thing in business so far too. And yes, I'm at a very, very low level still, and my business understanding of being involved in it and doing these things. It's only been 3.5 years, but I've found that yes, you have to have numbers coming through the door. And you have to have quality to be able to provide them that service, but you have to have consistency over the course of everything too. Because without it, you're not going to be the brand or leave the legacy that you want to. So it's a big piece of it. It was hard to step back because I knew then I was going to have to pull back, and I can't be in control of what's happening every day.
You're not the only. I mean, I used to manage money. I had lots of entrepreneurs that couldn't let go because they knew they were the quality standard. They had to be there for the sales classes. They had to be there for whatever it is. They couldn't expand because I had a conversation with a guy who owned a big car dealership one time. It's a client of mine. Owned a bunch of planes. He was making tons of money, but he wanted to buy another dealership someplace else. And he goes, I just don't want. I don't know. I can't. I said, what's the problem? He goes, I don't trust anybody to be me.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, we'll give them some equity in the other place and then structure it in a way that they have to hit certain numbers to vest in the equity. So they have skin in the game, and if they don't get there, they're gone, right? Because the only reason you're you is because you care, because you built this from scratch. But still, it took him like a year and a half before he finally pulled the trigger. Then he was happier than hell because it worked. And he was lucky he found a guy that actually panned out. He didn't have to go through three guys, right? The consistency problem is almost always the labor talent piece.
Yeah.
Because you can figure out the quality of the ammo, the facility structure, safety, all of that, right? Even I'll say the marketing, the branding, and all that is also, as much as you think it's more non-human, it's actually talent-driven too. You have people that are inconsistent with the quality of what they're putting out there, whether they're really matching what your message is and all that. So, I mean, I find that. So I'm in a constant state of tweaking and trying to get for various companies to make sure that everybody knows what the message is and does it resonate? If it doesn't resonate, let's change it, whatever. And so the consistency and sustainability of like a drumbeat campaign is really, really critical as an aspect of a business. We've got a great person that works with us. She's really, really good at that. Super disciplined, doesn't miss any of those drum beats across a lot of different companies. But that's a talent solution. If she wasn't doing it, there's no doubt in my mind there'd be a drop in my confidence that it's gonna be done the same way she's doing it. So, from my experience, the labor thing's gonna always be a thing.
Yep.
It's tough, and I was involved in a shooting company a long time ago at Blackwater, and that was a huge problem because we scaled so fast. If you had 5 really great instructors with really great backgrounds, pedigrees, whatever, and really noble leaders when it came to shooting and safety and giving more value than people were paying for as far as the information they were given. And then you needed 12 of them. Then you needed 24 of them. Then you needed 40 of them. Well, it's like they don't exist. There aren't 44 of them. So you sit around a table and go, are we going to allow this to get watered down? How do we deal with this? Oh, we split these guys up and make them like in charge of 4 guys. You can do it for a while. So the talent thing is always a big problem. So what are you going to do? I mean, I know you're planning on the next Olympics and everything, but do you have any other plans for life? Are you even businesses? Are you thinking about any other businesses that you might want to pursue?
Well, once we get through LA in 28, then I think that there needs to be a look-see at where am I at? What am I going to do? Where am I at with other companies as well? Have we launched enough to where I can take a step back from the suppressor company? Because right now I'm handling marketing. I'm handling. Technically, I'm the chief of strategy. So I'm strategizing for this entire company of our go-to-market, of who do we talk to from a distribution, from a big box to a dealer, all these different levels that we're working on and learning as we go, but at the same time using and leveraging my contacts to be able to get us in the right doors. So using that, I'm hopeful that we can start hiring in some people within the next 6 to 12 months to really start taking over that role and start managing all those relationships that we've already started to build. But it's going to have to be, obviously, again, it's that talent acquisition piece that's going to be difficult for us. But then I'm looking at buying into a shooting range in Georgia. With that one, we have a lot of possibilities because it sits on 1,500 acres right next to Lake Hood County, Georgia, which is where I grew up at. and it's a very, very affluent area. So we're looking at elevating the quail hunting experiences. We're going to look at putting a very high-end academy there as well, so it'll be world available. And I can't tell you who's going to be a part of it, but a very large industry player will be a part of that, and it'll be branded their name.
It's not Elmer Fudd, is it?
Yes.
I know he's a big chunky guy.
So we'll have the academy, and we'll host major events too, World Cups, World Championships, all those things. And again, I'm not really expecting to get any money off of that for a number of years, but it's yet another piece of that puzzle to say, okay, I'm creating an opportunity for growth in the shooting sports, and therefore it's a way to impact my future legacy of what I'm leaving behind, because I don't want to be known as the guy that won 5 Olympic medals, or hopefully 6. I don't want that to only
me neither,
be it.
by the way.
I mean, it's awesome, and it's great, and I never would have imagined that I even would get to that point when I first started this at 11 years old. But the reality is that I love having accomplished what I've accomplished, but I just think I can do more. And if I just see myself as an athlete, then I'm never going to get there. So I have to find ways to branch out, to grow my sphere of influence, to help more people get into the shooting sports, experience what I've experienced, and take their kids, take their moms, take their dads out to the range, get them involved, let them understand what shooting sports are all about. And that's when I'll actually feel more of a sense of accomplishment than what I've got right now.
It's a very wise point of view. I'm the CEO of a foundation that deals with veterans transitions out of uniform, and I have a presentation that I give. It's called "Thank You for Your Service." It's kind of a scared, straight, slap in the face kind of approach to talking to veterans. And what I try to tell them is what you just articulated, that you can't. There's going to be a day where you hang up your guns in the case of, say, SEALs or other kinetic type units. And but I also talk to fighter pilots and like, what do you do when you've been a fighter pilot for 14 years or 15 years and you commanded a squadron and all that? And you have your big event, you walk out, and the next day you're standing there in your front yard sipping your coffee, looking around, and you're not any of those things anymore. That was you. That was your self-esteem. That was your image of yourself. That's what you think your family thinks you are, which isn't necessarily the truth. Yeah. My kids didn't even know I was a SEAL. They didn't even care I was a SEAL, because I never really talked to them about trying to become one or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, I had to preserve that vision of them, that I was this guy, right? Turned out it was all BS, and it's normally BS. They just want you to be dad. They don't care if you're dad fighter pilot. They just want you to be dad. And the struggle is everybody runs right up to the end of whatever this lifeline is. And you're talking about shooting. They run right up to there. That's when they realize, okay, this is probably it, without giving any thought to what's on the other side of this is probably it.
Yeah.
And as you know, in the military, there's a particular timeline where you need to get out. There's some physical issues if you're in a very physical part of the military, or you get too senior to do with fun stuff. I mean, admirals aren't zipping around in fighter planes, so it starts to not be rewarding anymore. Mm-hmm. You get injured. Just professional sports, you get injured. One day you're it, and next day you're on the sidelines, and the day after that you're out in the parking lot. Yeah. So that's great that you're thinking this way. It's great that you're thinking this way so soon. You see, you have like another couple of Olympics in you. To already have businesses on the ground, already have some of the experience, the hard fought and hard won experiences that you've discussed this far in advance, makes me feel like the transition's not even going to feel like a transition. You're probably gonna like a Roger Staubach, who's kind of a good example. He got into businesses and learned businesses while he was still, heading for the Hall of Fame, playing as a quarterback. And by the time, first real estate and things like that, but by the time he went to retire, he was already starting to become very successful at this side. Mm-hmm. And when I tell these guys in this talk, thank you for your service, the slide title says thank you for your service, and then the next slide is, so what? And then I talk about, you're no longer the big league baseball player, you're not the football player you were, you don't go out and look at all these trophies in your attic every day. That's what I am. I was that in high school, I was that in college, whatever. you put them behind you, right? You move on to the next thing. We got to do that now, right?
Yeah.
And the third slide is now what? So then I focus on that. And that's tough for people. The higher you go, like in your case, I mean, there's nobody higher in the world of skeet shooting. You're up here, right? Mm-hmm. The higher you go, the harder it is to make that transition and that shift.
Yeah.
And I think what you've told me and told our audience is that you're going to do it. Vincent Hancock's going to figure that out. But on the way there, you're going to win a couple more Olympics, at least 2, maybe 3, right?
That's the plan.
All right, man. Hey, it has been great.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the time you've given us, and I know you're helping our Warriors Foundation, so we're going to be raising money tomorrow at a big event, which I get to see you shoot in person. I don't know if you're going to get to see me shoot. I'm going to try to figure out some kind of an excuse for
We're
that.
going to make that happen. We're going to make that happen.
Yeah, but yeah, you're giving your time and helping veterans that are trying to figure out what to do next when they get out of uniform, and thank you for that.
No, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I like to learn something every time I meet somebody new. And we've talked a few different times, and I even got to look over some of your books as well. So I really appreciate you taking the time to help somebody you didn't even know, and for having me here and just having this discussion. I appreciate it.
It's great. So thanks for watching Instincts. If you want to know more about us, go to podfinitynation.net. Also, you can give us your comments, recommendations, or ideas of either guests or subject matter by sending an email to podfinitynation@gmail.com.